Previously on Monkeywrench Builds.
I still don't have any spark, and I don't know why. It is finally time to start the engine teardown. So, all I'm trying to do right now is figure out why this engine is not making any spark. I already ruled out that it's not this because I took the cover off of this at an earlier date. Everything then looked fine, and even if it was 180 out, it would, in theory, still make spark. It would just not make it at the right time, and I'm not getting any spark, so it's not this. Which leads me to the alternator, or stator, depending on what you want to call it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop open this viewing hole and see if I see anything. I'm hoping it'll be a dead giveaway, but who knows. I don't know if you can see this very well, but there is a lot of rust buildup in there. So I'm hoping if I crack this open that the reason why it's not making any spark is because the stator has some surface rust on it. And if I can get that cleaned up, maybe I can make this thing make some spark again.
Before removing the stator cover, I decided to remove the high-low gearbox first to get it out of the way. This gave me more working room as well as a chance to see what condition the internal parts were in.
After messing with this thing for far too long, I finally got it apart. So here's how this works. This casing's got those two bearings in it. These two bearings line up with these two shafts. Here you have your switch, that's what this connects to, with a pin lines up on that. When this rotates, it forces this fork in here, which has a little selector, basically a selector washer here, and it lines up with these keyways that are on these two gears. So you got one keyway set on here, one keyway set on here. Depending on how this is selected, it'll move this entire fork, and therefore this washer, it'll move it to this set of gears or this set of gears, and therefore changing from high range to low range depending on what you want. And that's about it. So now that I got that figured out, I'm going to be taking all the gears out, that way they're not in the way, not getting dirty, and then I'm going to start cracking open this case. Next problem, this casing has all these 8mm bolts. One here, one here, one here, one there, one there, and then there's a couple other ones that are incorporated when you actually have the pull start cover on here. Well, since the pull start cover was missing for so long, these two bolts, which I'm guessing weren't rated to see the outside, they are completely rusted out. This one came loose pretty easy. This one is completely rounded off, and I'm unable to get it removed using a wrench. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to cut the head off, but I don't have the tools right now to do that, so I'll have to go pick something up. So that's it for tonight. I'll be coming back at this sometime in the future, and I'll try something else. But yeah, I'm hoping to still get this thing cracked open and see if that stator's in any kind of workable shape. And if not, then I'll figure out what else to do with this motor. I'm not quite sure. I'm just kind of playing around with it. So it's very much exploratory, and I'm hoping to just have a lot of fun with it and record it so other people can see how it's done as well, and also watch me, you know, learn and fail and succeed and all that other stuff. So till next time. I have a plan. we are going to use drill bit set, and I'm gonna drill the head off of this because I don't feel like waiting, and this is a junk motor anyway. I win! I got it off! Oh, let's pull this casing and see what we find. Okay, I had some success. Finally got that bolt out. It's back in here now. I removed this. Now let's finally get this casing off and see what's inside. Okay, it looks like we found our problem. Looking in here, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but this whole thing is coated in surface rust. So, I think that's the problem. Hopefully, I can get that cleaned up and test it out. For those of you who aren't familiar, the way this works, this is your stator here, and this pretty much has your electrical wires that generate electricity. And it's generated off of this flywheel here, which has magnets in it. And every time it goes around, this is your crankshaft, every time that goes around, it generates electricity with the magnets, and then it gets sent out of these wires and into the wiring harness, and then everywhere else it needs to go. So if it's not able to generate electricity because of this rust, then that would be the issue. It's been a few days since that last clip. I haven't had a chance to work on the engine since then. But my solution of thinking that the rust was the problem, it wasn't. So let me walk you through all of the little troubleshooting things that I've done. So first off, you'll notice I got this casing back on. I cleaned it up a little bit of steel wool, so it's all shiny again. There's no signs of rust. I checked with my meter, and all the continuities and resistance are all according to spec, referencing off of this book and a couple of other resources I have online. So that all seems to be working fine. So what I've done now, and I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I figured to give it a shot. I took the old wiring harness off of that bike and pretty much set it up as a bench test. So everything is hooked up as it should be if it was on the bike. I also picked up another battery, so now instead of sitting here trying to crank this over with either a wrench or whatever else, I can actually use the starter motor, which thankfully the starter motor works, which is awesome. But here I have, this connection bypasses the key, this connection goes to the starter button, and this connection, this loop back, is the engine switch. So it's all worked. I've hit it with the battery a couple times and it does start the motor and starts to crank it. And I've got all these connections hooked up. I checked the wires, checked the continuity on these. Everything looks fine. And I'm still not getting anything. So I'm not really sure what to do next. I think what I'm gonna start with is I'm actually going to take this harness off of this bike or off of this engine, and I'm gonna bench test it on this guy. Because I know this thing has spark, I know it runs. So in theory, everything should be working fine. If I plug this harness in and it doesn't work, then it's gotta be something with the harness or with how they have it hooked up. I'm not really sure. I know this spark plug looks really dirty, which we saw in an earlier video, but it still makes spark. I haven't had a chance to go out and grab another one yet, but for testing purposes, I can see if it has a spark. That's all I need to do. This is actually the coil off of the 83 bike because the one on the 82 was snapped in the center. I don't know how that thing was starting, but it wasn't working. I know it works because I've been running it on the 82 since then and it hasn't had any problems. So as far as peripherals, this I know is good. I know that my the regulator's good. I've tested the CDI. The CDI is fine. So all of the peripherals should be good. I think I've tested the coil, but I don't think there's a whole lot that can go wrong on the coil because the coil also controls the starter motor, but the starter motor works fine. So I'm running on the assumption that that's okay. The only thing that I haven't checked is the pulse generator. So I think my issue is with the pulse generator. What I'm going to start with is I took it apart, took a couple pieces off, and in here, it's got a lot of rust buildup, but that's just for the advancing. So it kind of feels gummed up. I don't know what's wrong. It could be with this, it could be with the magnet on here. I'm not sure. It still has magnetism, like it's sticking. Seems to be working fine, but I'm not sure what the issue is. So the first step is going to be taking this wiring harness off, sticking it on this bike, seeing if this bike still starts. If it does, then I know that all my peripherals and my wiring is good to go, which means the only thing left on the list has to be that CDI, or sorry, not CDI, the pulse generator. So if that's the case and I get to that point, I'm going to quickly take the CDI off of that bike, stick it in here, and see what happens. And if that does work, then I will try to clean this one up, or I'll actually try to put this one in the other bike and see if it works, because for some reason, I don't know, maybe taking it out and putting it back in helps it. Not sure, but we'll see how far we get. All right, here's the setup put onto the other bike. So I'm running off of the voltage regulator from that bike, the starter coil, battery here. Unfortunately, this battery does not fit into the battery tray. Apparently I bought the wrong one, so I'll have to figure that out later. All right, here's your starter cable. Runs down to the starter back here, that's connected up. I've got this CDI wired into this harness. Up here, there's also the, here's the CDI, here's the pulse generator. And these are all extra wires I'm not using. I've got the two connections down here. Let's see what it does. Got spark sitting. You can see it. There. Let's see what it does. Alright, no spark. Now what? I really didn't want to pull this engine again, but it looks like that's the next step. If the wiring is bad on this bench test setup, then I'm going to try to use the wiring harness that I know is good and hook it up to the other engine and see if I can get spark. Because I'm fresh out of ideas. Just got finished putting the original pulse generator back onto the spare motor, and I just got the motor installed, so let's take a look at what we have. So everything's wired up, got everything connected up just like I had on the other motor, which is now sitting right there. I've got the starter connector connected. These are hooked up, that's hooked up. So hopefully, let's see what this thing does. So that's resting on my ground point. Hit the starter, let's see what it does. Yeah! That's spark. Sweet, it's fixed. Okay, well, that was amazing. I think I know what I did to fix it. All I really did was, inside of this unit, there's a rotor, and there was some gunk inside that rotor that was not allowing it to spin freely. So I'm thinking there was just a lack of connection there. I'm honestly not really sure. It also could have been this wiring harness the entire time. So, in any case, it works. So I'm really excited about that. Now I get to clean up my mess. Because I've got parts and tools and everything else laying everywhere. And then I get to start breaking down this motor some more and seeing what other things are wrong with it. I went ahead and ordered a gasket kit and a piston kit, as well as a new shifter seal, because if you look at this here, this shaft here where it goes into the motor is leaking, which is why there's a whole bunch of oil and gunk all in here. So when I get this engine pulled back out, I will be attempting to remove that and replace it. The exact same thing is leaking on this bike as well. So eventually I'll order two when I rebuild this one. But I fixed the spark, which is fantastic.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. We made some good progress this week. Stay tuned for the next video where I will be tearing open this engine and refurbishing the top end.